Hi folks, Philip Andrews here and welcome to this e-seminar presented by photoshopelements.net. This evening what we're going to be looking at is new ways to display and share our photos. There's been some big changes over the last 10 or 15 years in terms of the way in which photographers can present their photos to friends and relatives and a wider audience as well. Back in the old days we used to print all of our images and walk around with folios showing people folios or albums of those photos. But now with the help of programs like Photoshop Elements and Premiere Elements, we're able to actually provide a range of different types of mechanisms for displaying our images. Largely this is due to some new technologies that have come on board, things like high definition TVs, Blu-ray players, media center computers, HDMI connections which combine audio and images together in one cable, and new hardware, so things like big screen TVs, um, also phones which have high resolution screens on them, and things like digital photo frames, and of course the new iPad. We also have new ways to display. We can look at digital slideshows, movies and animated websites, and we have new ways to present. We can upload our images to places like Flickr and YouTube, Facebook and even Photoshop.com, all of which provide great ways to show your friends, relatives and a bigger audience the quality of your work. And we have a bunch of new software that helps us do that. Things like Photoshop Express, which is now called Photoshop.com, Photoshop itself, Premiere Elements, Photoshop Elements and Lightroom. All of them have output to a range of different ways of presenting your images. But it's worth having a look at a bit of a workflow just before we get into it, just so that you understand the sorts of things that we're going to be doing. First of all, I'll encourage you to edit and enhance your images before you actually incorporate them into an output type product. So in a elements workflow, this means we actually grab our images, drag them into Photoshop Elements, do all our editing and enhancing before saving them off in a form that we can use in the actual presentation. The next thing that I think is worth doing is sequencing those images in an album. If you're working with the Macintosh version, you can change the way in which the thumbnails are being displayed in the Bridge browser so that you're using a manual sort. This way you can actually push and pull your images around and change their order or sequence. We then select those images and create a slideshow. When we create a slideshow, we can add in music, we can add in narration, we can even add in type or text, and also graphics if we wish. We can also do some animation using the pan and zoom tools. Then we have a choice to output those to video or disk, and we even have the ability to pass on that slideshow through to Premiere Elements, which is what I'm going to be doing for you today. And then we'll be able to output to phone, YouTube, video disc or DVD or even Blu-ray. So we have lots of different options. Sounds a little complex? Yes, might be, but I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is. Literally in about 5 steps we can go through the whole process and end up with an automated, animated video album on our iPhone or up on the web or even just on our desktop so that we can display it. Let's have a look how we do it. So I'm going to jump in and share my desktop with you now. And you'll notice that we're actually working in the organizer space of Photoshop Elements, waiting for your screen to update. And you'll see that I have a slideshow group of images here, and I've already placed those in an album. You see the album here is called New Ways to Share. A bunch of different portrait images, some vertical, some horizontal. Notice that at the beginning of this sequence of images, I actually have created a series of title slides. It's got the text slide to start with, and then gradually the text disappears or becomes more transparent, and underneath is an original image that's part of the portrait sequence. I just made that in Photoshop Elements using two different layers and adjusting the opacity, and then saving off those files as new JPEG files, which I've included in this slideshow. So once we have all the images in the way that we want to work with them, in the order, the sequence, I can then just click and drag a marquee around all of the photos, then go up to create, just down to slideshow. Notice that the first screen that we see when we're creating a slideshow is the preferences screen. Here we get to choose the different types of settings that are applied to the whole of the slideshow. For instance, we can choose the static duration. This is the length of time that the image is actually displayed. I'm going to start with 1 second because that's our minimum. Then we have the different types of transition. This is the transition between slides. You can see that there's a range of different options there. I'm just going to select fade. Then we have, and you could see the example of the transition there. Let me just pick another one so you can see. Then we have the transition duration. Now this is the length of time that it will take for that transition to actually work between one image and another. Again, I'm going to select 1 second. Background color you can choose. Here I've got black, and we have a range of other options here. I'm just going to select repeat soundtrack until last slide as the only option there. I'm going to preview in high quality. Click OK. Those files are then dragged into the slideshow editor space. And you can see that we have a series of thumbnails across the bottom of the screen. And they're in the same sequence and the same order that we had them inside the organizer workspace. You can see in between each of the thumbnails we have a transition, and at the moment we have fade selected, but we could go and choose any of the other transitions and we could choose to apply that to all of them. 1 second duration for all of these images here. Let's just look at how that looks when we. So you'll notice, I'm hoping that you'll notice on your screen, it's a little bit difficult when it's being ported over the net like this, but you'll notice a transition from the first title screen through the other images, and gradually you'll see the background image starting to grow in color and also in opacity, and the title to disappear, and then we'll jump into seeing the other images. So the initial titles are looking good, but I want to change the way in which we view some of the individual slides. For instance, let's grab this image here and let's just make it bigger so it sits bigger on the screen. And by just clicking on it, we can actually grab the image and make it so that it fills the whole screen. No problem at all.